Malarials of the world bundle in shivering protoplasm. Fear seals the turd message with a cuneiform account. Giggling riders copulate to the screams of a burning nigra. Lonely librarians unite in soul kiss of halitosis. That grippy feeling, brother? Sore throat, persistent and disquieting as the hot afternoon wind? Welcome to the International Syphilis Lodge. Methodith episcopal goddamneth, phrase used to test for speech impairment, typical of paresis. Or the first silent touch of canker makes you a member in good standing. The vibrating soundless hum of deep forest and Oregon accumulators. The sudden silence of cities when the junk cops and even the commuter buzzes clogged lines of cholesterol for contact. Signal flares of orgasm burst over the world. A tee-hee lumps up screaming, "I got the fear!" and runs into Mexican night, bringing down backbrains of the world. The executioner shits in terror at sight of the condemned man. The torturer screams in the ear of his implacable victim. Knife fighters embrace in adrenaline. Cancer is at the door with a singing telegram. Hey there, everyone. What you just witnessed is a passage from William Burroughs' Naked Lunch, published in 1959. Initially banned in the United States for its extremely graphic depictions of extreme sexual acts, gore, and homosexual subject matter, this work is a staple for establishing the Beat Generation. Alongside Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, William Burroughs was a defining writer in the counterculture movement of the 50s and 60s, shedding light not only on what is often viewed as obscenity, but also the stifling grips of drug addiction, government control, and political strife. Presenting us with a work of staggering perplexity and varied subject matter, I must confess that this is the most confusing work of fiction I have yet read. Nevertheless, I would here like to delve into this work and its themes through an examination of certain key passages to help a reader, or a merely casual listener, gain some insight into this staple work of postmodern American literature. Now, I must put a disclaimer in here before going any further. As you heard in that initial passage, the N-word is present here, and I do not choose to recite it lightly. I only do so to stay true to the text as Burroughs wrote it. I know that his language is often very idiomatic in a very negative way, and I don't revel in reciting such language, but I just wanted to make that clear that I tried to actually avoid as many passages as possible that include that word, such that I don't have to say it any more than I have to, and it just makes me uncomfortable reading it, so I hope you understand. But that being said, we must begin with the setting and structure of this work. The true challenge in interpreting Naked Lunch is its lack of a coherent plot or setting. Naked Lunch is structured as a series of vignettes loosely centered around the fictional Interzone, a location Burroughs has confirmed is an allegory for the Tangier International Zone. Now, this zone, and I'm taking this from the Wikipedia article, was a 382 square kilometer, or 147 square mile, international zone centered on the city of Tangier in Morocco, which existed from 1925 until its reintegration into independent Morocco in 1956, with interruption during the Spanish occupation of Tangier from 1940 to 45. And special economic status extended until early of 1960. Surrounded on the land side by the Spanish protectorate in Morocco, it was governed under a unique and complex system that involved various European nations, the United States, mainly after 1945, and the Sultan of Morocco, himself under a French protectorate. Due to its status as an international zone, Tangier played a crucial role for Moroccan nationalists who wanted independence to establish international contact and recruit allies, as well as organizing gatherings and events." End quote. Now, we're keyed into this allegory in the text with the consistent referral to the zone, as well as in the atrophied preface, it is signed Tangier, 1959. The vignette, titled The Market, opens with a thinly veiled allusion to the cosmopolitan scene of the Tangier International Zone. The room seems to shake and vibrate with motion. The blood and substance of many races, Negro, Polynesian, Mountain Mongol, Desert Nomad, Polyglot, Near East, Indian, races as yet unconceived and unborn, combinations not yet realized pass through your body. Migrations, incredible journeys through deserts and jungles and mountains, stasis and death in closed mountain valleys where plants grow out of genitals, vast crustaceans hatch inside and break the shell of body, across the Pacific in an outrigger canoe to Easter Island, the composite city where all human potentials are spread out in a vast silent market. In order to accentuate the complex socio-political climate of the Tangier International Zone, Naked Lunch purposefully obfuscates one's traditional ability to concretely orient oneself in a clear narrative structure. Indeed, to be honest, for probably the first 60 pages, I was having trouble detecting who is saying what. Even when we're given names of characters, hardly ever are they fleshed out enough or even indicated enough, even by the end of the work, to be able to concretely give a synopsis of who they are. This is, in all honesty, one of the more frustrating aspects of this work, but one must also be aware that such a discombobulated state is indeed part of the point, intended to replicate the tumultuous climate of the Tangier International Zone, as well as the general feeling in the aftermath of World War I and II. If one wishes to gain some clarity with regard to Naked Lunch, I advise one to begin with the penultimate vignette, the atrophied preface, in which he says regarding the book's structure, "The word is divided into units, which be all in one piece, and should be so taken, but the pieces can be had in any order, being tied up back and forth, in and out, fore and aft, like an interesting sex arrangement. This book spill off the page in all directions, kaleidoscope of vistas, medley of tunes and street noises, farts and riot yipes, and the slamming steel shutters of commerce. Screams of pain and pathos and screaming plain pathic, copulating cats and outraged squawk of the displaced bullhead, prophetic mutterings of brujo and nutmeg trances, snapping necks and screaming mandrakes, sigh of orgasm, heroin silent as dawn in the thirsty cells, Radio Cairo screaming like a berserk tobacco auction, and flutes of Ramadan fanning the sick junkie like a gentle lush worker in the gray subway dawn, feeling with delicate fingers for the green folding crackle. This is revelation and prophecy of what I can pick up without FM on my 1920 crystal set with antennae of jism. Gentle reader, we see God through our assholes in the flesh bulb of orgasm. Through these orifices transmute your body. The way out is the way in. Gentle reader, the word will leap on you with leopard man iron claws. It will cut off fingers and toes like an opportunist land crab. It will hang you and catch your jism like a scrutable dog. It will coil round your thighs like a bushmaster and inject a shot glass of rancid ectoplasm. And why a scrutable dog? Sex and Obscenity. Naked Lunch was a landmark work not only in literary history, but American history more broadly. Due to its extreme subject matter, it was banned in the United States, first by the U.S. Post Office, and then subsequently upon a hearing to determine its artistic merit, or even if it possessed any. I think it is important to at least touch on the obscenity trials, since it highlights a major concern with the book. Is it art, or is it mere obscenity? In the U.S., as well as many other countries' law, a work is determined to be obscene based on a test, outlined in the U.S. in the 1957 Supreme Court case Roth v. United States, which, and this is also from the Wikipedia article, redefined the constitutional test for determining what constitutes obscene material unprotected by the First Amendment. The court, in an opinion by Justice William J. Brennan, Jr., created a test to determine what constituted obscene material, whether the average person, applying contemporary community standards, would find that the material applies to a prurient interest in sex, and whether the material was utterly without redeeming social value. Although the court upheld Roth's conviction and allowed some obscenity prosecutions, it drastically loosened obscenity laws." End quote. As such, the deliberation in court over Naked Lunch concerning whether or not it had at least some redeeming social value is important. The defense argued that Naked Lunch was a satire that demanded the use of idiomatic and indeed vulgar language and subject matter. They argued that Naked Lunch constituted, among other things, a critique of capital punishment, a demonstration of the throes and horrifying nature of drug addiction, as well as an artistically nuanced portrayal of paranoia and psychosis. The prosecution argued that while the work may be seen as containing some satire, its lack of structure and narrative consistency made it such that the passages under scrutiny, particularly Hassan's Rumpus Room and AJ's Party, could be taken in isolation and did not meaningfully add to the artistically valuable parts of the work. And in all honesty, I see merit in both the defense and prosecution's arguments. While the book does have some redeeming and genuinely interesting qualities, most of the book, as the Los Angeles municipal judge in the city of Los Angeles' trial stated, quote, "It did not appeal to a prurient interest and therefore did not violate the statute. Yet he remarked that its predominant interest is to complete boredom." End quote. Much of the work strikes one as virtually meaningless, at least when viewed in the traditional sense as meaning being connected to an overall message or plot that guides one's interpretation. Nevertheless, Naked Lunch does have the tendency to open up like a flower on occasion, presenting us with uniquely ecstatic moments, such as the conclusion of Johnny and Mary's intense scene of sadomasochism. He leaps about the room. With a scream of longing that shatters the glass wall, he leaps out into space. Masturbating end over end, 3,000 feet down, his sperm floating beside him, he screams all the way against the shattering blue of sky, the rising sun burning over his body like gasoline, down past great oaks and persimmons, swamp cypress and mahogany, to shatter in liquid relief in a ruined square paved with limestone. Weeds and vines grow between the stones, and rusty iron bolts 3 feet thick penetrate the white stone, stain it shit brown of rust. They embrace, fall to the floor, and roll under a great magnifying glass set in the roof, burst into flame with a cry that shatters the glass wall, roll into space, fucking and screaming through the air, burst in blood and flames and soot on brown rocks under a desert sun. Johnny leaps about the room in agony. With a scream that shatters the glass wall, he stands spread-eagled to the rising sun, blood spurting out his cock. A white marble god, he plummets through the epileptic explosions into the old Majud, writhe in shit and rubbish by a mud wall under a sun that scar and grab the flesh into goose pimples. He is a boy sleeping against the mosque wall, ejaculates wet dreaming into 1,000 cunts, pink and smooth as seashells, feeling the delight of prickly pubic hairs slide up his cock. As one can see, while the scene is certainly graphic, it is unmistakably marred with the mark of the counterculture that defined the Beat generation. Body horror. As wonderful as some of these scenes may be for delivering the unique liberatory spirit of its time, Naked Lunch also ventures to the very edge of acceptable, indeed stomachable, subject matter. With Burroughs himself being at one time a heroin addict, grasped by the white claws of addiction, there is a consistent through line of the visceral capture of the body by outside forces, whose grasp is beyond argumentation. Many passages strike one as autobiographical, portraying in gruesome yet arguably necessary detail the unique horrors of the drug-addicted body. Oblique Addict suffers a whole spectrum of subjective horror, silent protoplasmic fury, hideous agony of the bones. Tensions build up, pure energy without emotional content finally tears through the body, throwing him about like a man in contact with high-tension wires. If his charge connection is cut off cold, the oblique addict falls into such violent electric convulsions that his bones shake loose, and he dies with the skeleton straining to climb out of its unendurable flesh and run in a straight line to the nearest cemetery. The text's focus on the viscera of addiction, sex, and modern life in general has led many scholars to classify Naked Lunch as a work of body horror, with body horror being defined, once again, to quote Wikipedia, as a subgenre of horror fiction that intentionally showcases grotesque or psychologically disturbing violations of the human body, or to any other creature. These violations may manifest through aberrant sex, mutations, mutilation, zombification, gratuitous violence, disease, or unnatural movements of the body. Body horror specifically focuses on the limits and transformative capacities of the human body. The genre can invoke intense feelings of physical and psychological disgust, or squick, and play upon anxieties of physical vulnerability." End quote. With such aspects now firmly noted, I advise one to enter this work cautiously. It is not for the faint-hearted or the weak-stomached. While I would argue that such aspects of modern and postmodern literature are one of their most fascinating and actually redeeming qualities, it always teeters on excess in Naked Lunch. I often find myself asking whether this display of such and such subject matter is strictly necessary. What does it add? In what way does it contribute to the work more broadly? That being said, it seems that one of the key goals of this work is to resist the utilitarian logic of modern society, which places value only on what is profitable, useful, or acceptable. Naked Lunch indeed calls itself tentative half-impressions that dissolve in light, pockets of rotten ectoplasm swept out by an old junkie coughing and spitting in the sick morning. And it's evidently opposed to a sort of assimilationist logic of conformity or normative absolutism. Returning to the atrophied preface, Burroughs states, "There is only one thing a writer can write about, what is in front of his senses at the moment of writing. I am a recording instrument. I do not presume to impose story, plot, continuity. And so for us, I succeed in direct recording of certain areas of psychic process I may have limited function. I'm not an entertainer. Possession, they call it. Sometimes an entity jumps in the body, outlines waver in yellow-orange jelly, and hands move to disembowel the passing whore or strangle the neighbor child in hopes of alleviating a chronic housing shortage. As if I was usually there but subject to goof now and again. Wrong, I am never here. Never that is fully in possession, but somehow in a position to forestall ill-advised moves. Patrolling is, in fact, my principal occupation. No matter how tight security, I am always somewhere outside giving orders and inside this straitjacket of jelly that gives and stretches, but always reforms ahead of every movement, thought, impulse, stamped with the seal of alien inspection." Now, with these thoughts in mind, I invite the listener to indulge me in a reading of the opening section of the court-contested and controversial vignette, Hassan's Rumpus Room. Gilt and red plush, rococo bar backed by pink shell. The air is cloyed with a sweet evil substance like decayed honey. Men and women in evening dress sip pousse cafes through alabaster tubes. A Near East mugwump sits naked on a bar, stood covered in pink silk. He licks warm honey from a crystal goblet with a long black tongue. His genitals are perfectly formed, circumcised cock, black shiny pubic hairs. His lips are thin and purple-blue like the lips of a penis, his eyes blank with insect calm. A mugwump has no liver, maintaining himself exclusively on sweets. Mugwump push a slender blonde youth to a couch and strip him expertly. "Stand up and turn around," he orders in telepathic pictographs. He ties the boy's hands behind him with a red silk cord. "Tonight we make it all the way. No, no, screams the boy. Yes, yes. Cocks ejaculate in silent yes. Mugwump part silk curtains reveal a teak wood gallows against lighted screen of red flint. Gallows is on a dais of Aztec mosaics. The boy crumples to his knees with a long "oh!" shitting and pissing in terror. He feels the shit warm between his thighs. A great wave of hot blood swells his lips and throat. His body contracts into a fetal position and sperm spurts hot into his face. The mugwump dips hot perfumed water from alabaster bowl, pensively washes the boy's ass and cock, drying him with a soft blue towel. A warm wind plays over the boy's body and the hairs float free. The mugwump puts a hand under the boy's chest and pulls him to his feet. Holding him by both pinioned elbows, propels him up the steps and under the noose. He stands in front of the boy, holding the noose in both hands. The boy looks into mugwump eyes, blank as obsidian mirrors, pools of black blood, glory holes in a toilet wall closing on the last erection. An old garbage collector, face fine and yellow as Chinese ivory, blows the blast on his dented brass horn, wakes the Spanish pimp with a hard-on. Whore staggers out through dust and shit and litter of dead kittens, carrying bales of aborted fetuses, broken condoms, bloody Kotex, shit wrapped in bright color comics. A vast still harbor of iridescent water. Deserted gas well flares on the smoky horizon. Stink of oil and sewage. Sick sharks swim through the black water, belch sulfur from rotten livers, ignore a bloody, broken Icarus. Naked Mr. America, burning frantic with self-bone love, screams out, "My asshole confounds the Louvre! I fart ambrosia and shit pure gold turds! My cock spurts soft diamonds in the morning sunlight!" He plummets from the eyeless lighthouse, kissing and jacking off in face of the black mirror, glides oblique down with cryptic condoms and mosaic of 1,000 newspapers through a drowned city of red brick, to settle in black mud with tin cans and beer bottles, gangsters in concrete, pistols pounded flat and meaningless to avoid short-arm inspection of prurient ballistics experts. He waits the slow striptease of erosion with fossil loins. The mugwump slips the noose over the boy's head and tightens the knot, caressingly behind the left ear. The boy's penis is retracted, his balls tight. He looks straight ahead, breathing deeply. The mugwump sidles around the boy, goosing him and caressing his genitals in hieroglyphs of mockery. He moves in behind the boy with a series of bumps and shoves his cock up the boy's ass. He stands there, moving in circular gyrations. The guests shush each other, nudge, and giggle. Suddenly the mugwump pushes the boy forward into space, free of his cock. He steadies the boy with hands on the hip bones, reaches up with his stylized hieroglyph hands, and snaps the boy's neck. A shudder passes through the boy's body. His penis rises in 3 great surges, pulling his pelvis up, ejaculates immediately. Green sparks explode behind his eyes. A sweet toothache pain shoots through his neck down the spine to the groin, contracting the body in spasms of delight. His whole body squeezes out through his cock. A final spasm throws a great spurt of sperm across the red screen like a shooting star. The boy falls with soft, gutty suction through the maze of penny arcades and dirty pictures. A sharp turd shoots clean out of his ass. Farts shake his slender body. Skyrockets burst in green clusters across a great river. He hears the faint putt-putt of a motorboat in jingled twilight. Under silent wings of the Anopheles mosquito. The mugwump pulls the boy back onto his cock. The boy squirms, impaled like a speared fish. The mugwump swings on the boy's back, his body contracting in fluid waves. Blood flows down the boy's chin from his mouth, half open, sweet, and sulky in death. The mugwump falls with a fluid, sated plop. Comedy. Now, in spite of the impression such a passage may give of the seemingly continually overwhelming nature of Naked Lunch, It must be expressed how funny this work can be at times, and I must say at times only. One of the defining elements of postmodern literature is its emphasis on satire and comedy to deliver many of its most salient social critiques. For example, we get a short and sweet critique of corporate greed and a reflection of the general sense of the people's disillusionment with their leaders. The party leader rides in triumph through yiping crowds. A dignified old man shits at sight of him and tries to sacrifice himself under the wheels of the car. Party leader: "Don't sacrifice your old dried-up person under the wheels of my brand-new Buick Roadster convertible with white-walled tires, hydraulic windows, and all the trimmings." At other times, we get critiques of colonial authority and the supposed democracy brought with them to their colonies. The island was a British military and naval station, directly opposite the zone. England holds the island on yearly rent-free lease, and every year the lease and permit of residence is formally renewed. The entire population turns out. Attendance is compulsory and gathers at the municipal dump. The president of the island is required by custom to crawl along the garbage on his stomach and deliver the permit of residence and renewal of the lease, signed by every citizen of the island, to the resident governor, who stands resplendent in dress uniform. The governor takes the permit and shoves it into his coat pocket. "Well," he says with a tight smile, "so you've decided to let us stay another year, have you? Very good of you. And everyone is happy about it? Is there anyone who isn't happy about it?" Soldiers in jeeps sweep mounted machine guns back and forth across the crowd with a slow, searching movement. "Everybody happy? Well, that's fine." He turns jovially to the prostrate president. "I'll keep your papers in case I get caught short." Ha ha ha. His loud metallic laugh rings out across the dump, and the crowd laughs with him under the searching guns. The forms of democracy are scrupulously enforced on the island. There's a Senate and a Congress who carry on endless sessions discussing garbage disposal and outhouse inspection, the only two questions over which they have any jurisdiction. For a brief period in the mid-19th century, they had been allowed to control the Department of Baboon Maintenance, but this privilege had been withdrawn owing to absenteeism in the Senate. And sometimes the comedy just seems to serve no other purpose than to be funny. Then there was the time he collapsed with strangulated intestines, perforated ulcers, and peritonitis in Cairo, and the hospital was so crowded they bedded him in the latrine, and the Greek surgeon goofed and sewed up a live monkey in him, and he was gang-fucked by the Arab attendants, and one of the orderlies stole the penicillin substituting Saniflush. And the time he got clapping his ass, and a self-righteous English doctor cured him with an enema of hot sulfuric acid. And the German practitioner of technological medicine, who removed his appendix with a rusty can opener and a pair of tin snips. He considered the germ theory, quote, a nonsense. Flushed with success, he then began snipping and cutting out everything in sight. "The human body is filled up with unnecessitated parts. You can get by with one kidney. Why have two? Yes, that is a kidney. The inside parts should not be so close together, crowded. They need Lebensraum like the Vaterland." So to conclude, in a roundabout way, a discussion of this work would be incomplete without an indulgence in the famous talking asshole scene. Combining the visceral body horror-like descriptions that pepper the work with the vulgar subject matter, socio-political critiques, and downright funny elements, this scene is certainly one of the more memorable parts of Naked Lunch. Schaefer's not listening. "You know," he said impulsively, "I think I'll go back to plain old-fashioned surgery. The human body is scandalously inefficient. Instead of a mouth and an anus to get out of order, why not just have one all-purpose hole to eat and eliminate? We could seal up nose and mouth, fill in the stomach, make an air hole direct into the lungs where it should have been in the first place. Benway, why not one all-purpose blob? Did I ever tell you about the man who taught his asshole to talk? His whole abdomen would move up and down, you dig? Farting out the words. It was unlike anything I ever heard. This ass talk had a sort of gut frequency. It hit you right down there like you gotta go. You know when the old colon gives you the elbow and it feels sort of cold inside, and you know all you have to do is turn loose? Well, this talking hit you right down there, a bubbly, thick, stagnant sound, a sound you could smell. This man worked for a carnival, you dig, and to start with, it was like a novelty ventriloquist act. Real funny, too, at first. He had a number he called the better old that was a scream. I tell you, I forgot most of it, but it was clever. Like, "Oh, I say, are you still down there, old thing?" "Nah, I had to go relieve myself." After a while, the ass started talking on its own. He would go in without anything prepared, and his ass would ad-lib and toss the gags back at him every time. Then it developed sort of teeth-like little raspy, incurving hooks and started eating. He thought this was cute at first and built an act around it, but the asshole would eat its way through his pants and start talking on the street, shouting out it wanted equal rights. It would get drunk too and have crying gags. Nobody loved it, and it wanted to be kissed, same as any other mouth. Finally, it talked all the time, day and night. You could hear him for blocks, screaming at it to shut up, and beating it with his fist, and sticking candles up it. But nothing did any good, and the asshole said to him, "It's you who will shut up in the end, not me, because we don't need you around here anymore. I can talk and eat and shit." After that, he began waking up in the morning with a transparent jelly like a tadpole's tail all over his mouth. This jelly was what the scientists call UNDT, undifferentiated tissue, which can grow into any kind of flesh on the human body. He would tear it off his mouth, and the pieces would stick to his hands like burning gasoline jelly and grow there. Grow anywhere on him, a glob of it fell. So finally his mouth sealed over, and the whole head would have amputated spontaneous. Did you know there's a condition occurs in parts of Africa and only among Negroes where the little toe amputates spontaneously? Except for the eyes, you dig? That's the one thing the asshole couldn't do was see. It needed the eyes, but nerve connections were blocked and infiltrated and atrophied, so the brain couldn't give orders anymore. It was trapped in the skull, sealed off. For a while you could see the silent, helpless suffering of the brain behind the eyes. Then finally the brain must have died, because the eyes went out, and there was no more feeling in them than a crab's eye on the end of a steak. That's the sex that passes the censor, squeezes through between bureaus, because there's always a space between in popular songs and grade B movies, giving away the basic American rottenness, spurting out like breaking boils, throwing out globs of that UNDT to fall anywhere, and grow into some degenerate cancerous life form, reproducing a hideous, random image. Some would be entirely made of penis-like erectile tissue, others viscera barely covered over with skin, clusters of 3 and 4 eyes together, crisscross of mouth and assholes, human parts shaken around and poured out any way they fell. The end result of complete cellular representation is cancer. Democracy is cancerous, and bureaus are its cancer. A bureau takes root anywhere in the state, turns malignant like the narcotic bureau, and grows, always reproducing more of its own kind until it chokes the host, if not controlled or excised. Bureaus cannot live without a host, being true parasitic organisms. A cooperative, on the other hand, can live without the state. That's the road to follow. The building up of independent units to meet needs of the people who participate in the functioning of the unit. A bureau operates on opposite principle of inventing needs to justify its existence. Bureaucracy is wrong as a cancer, a turning away from the human evolutionary direction of infinite potentials and differentiation and independent spontaneous action to the complete parasitism of a virus. It is thought that the virus is a degeneration from a more complex life form. It may at one time have been capable of independent life, now has fallen to the borderline between living and dead matter. It can exhibit living qualities only in a host by using the life of another, the renunciation of life itself, a falling towards inorganic, inflexible machine, towards dead matter. Bureaus die when the structure of the state collapses. They are as helpless and unfit for independent existences as a displaced tapeworm or a virus that has killed the host. So that being said, I hope this has been useful in understanding William Burroughs' Naked Lunch. Check out any of my other lectures that I've done on postmodernism, German idealism, gender theory, post-colonial studies, and other literature. Become a channel member for $5 a month, and you can gain access to, among other things, a monthly private philosophy Zoom, which you can tailor to your needs. I also have super thanks available if you'd like to donate to the channel, because books are not cheap, and I'd really appreciate it. That's it for this lecture, and I will see you in another one.